Good evening, folks. Welcome back to another Monday night live stream. How's everybody doing? Hope you all had a fabulous weekend. Judging by the chat, we've got a mixture of sort of temperatures that will boil people's blood and a little bit of rain dotted about the world at the moment. So I hope everybody is staying nice and safe out of the heat, because I think we've got some pretty warm weather dotted around the globe at the minute. I just saw a photograph on Twitter where I can't remember what the company was, but the company had said basically that they weren't able to work because their power cables had melted. So yeah, it must be pretty warm. But good evening. Let's see who we've got in the chat tonight. And for those who haven't seen the title, I'm sure you all have, and you saw the thumbnail at the start there, we're not only going to be talking about what is OverDrive, which is a new game that was announced at the weekend by Mantic. We're also going to be having a look over the other stuff that Mantic talked about as well at the weekend, which was the new releases for Armada and some new Kings of War stuff as well. So we'll get to those ones. But the main topic being OverDrive. And very, very fortunately, I contacted Robert Mantic this morning, said I was going to be talking about this tonight, and could he send me over some of the images from the slides at the weekend. And he very kindly sent me over a PDF of the rulebook. So I have now as well spent all day sort of writing the presentation that you're going to see tonight, learning the rules, reading through everything. So not only am I going to be kind of showing you stuff that they talked about on Saturday at the Mantic stream, the preview, I'll also be able to kind of answer some of your questions. I'll be able to tell you a bit more in depth about the rules as well, about the league play, about the different game modes and stuff. So this is probably the most up-to-date information that you'll find on this game tonight. So, yeah, let's have a look. We've got Tolmart in nice and early. Hello, Tolmart. We've got Caradram as well. Hello to you. He's scrolling down here because you two are having a right old chat. We then had Peter Kuhlman come in. Hello, Peter. Tony Howell. Nice to see you as well, fella. Hope you're well. We've got Lord Maiden. Hello, Ian. Hope you're well. Ortega. Hello in the rerun, fella. Peter Nicholas. Did I say Peter Nicholas? I'm not sure if I did. Peter Nicholas is in as well. We had the Fomorian. We also had Marcus Super Pumpkin Man. Hello to you, gents. Hope you're both well. Blizzards is in as well. Christian, thank you very much for coming and helping out, mate. Nice to see you in. Tasty Brain Drain's in. Al Cluley, hello to you both. Ed Handley as well. TSINI Productions, I hope I've pronounced that right. It says, it looks like a new way to pinch my money. Well, I'm not here to sell it to you, but at least I'm here to tell you more about it anyway. We've got Busey in as well, Different Gear TV. Hello, mate. Jill Monroe, good evening, Jill. Hope you're well. We've also got Mark Coxey in. Nice to see you. Hope Lives. Saying, where was that one before I jumped off my screen again there? Saying, howdy, folks. Kodos is in. We've got Scott Longworth in. We've got Nigel Jones in. We've got Rob Ziller as well, saying, evening, everyone, watching the football at the same time. Yeah, I would like to say that I've got it on as well. I did see... who is it? It's France. I did see France are getting beat 1-0, but I must admit I haven't got it on in the background. We've got Palms again. Nice to see you, fella. We've got Gary Powell. He said, hey, matey, interested to see a bit of info about OverDrive. Well, hopefully I can answer as much as I can tonight. I should preface this with I've not played the game. I've not had a chance to play it. Obviously, we only found out about it on Saturday. I was busy all day Saturday as well, so only got to see it yesterday afternoon and catch up on the stream. So yeah, I've pretty much spent all day kind of just cramming myself full of information. So I think I've kind of learned it all now. Who else have we got here? Iron's in as well, saying that'll teach me to leave this open in a window and forget about it. It shocked the bejesus out of me. Somebody else did that the other day as well. Flip Movie Maker, hello to you. Good morning to VJ as well. Hello to Andrew all the way from Washington DC. Nice to see you, matey. Brad P says, Mantic are good people, not sure I have room for another game. It depends with which games you will play, mate. This might be enough to squeeze one out. Red Rose Wargaming, good evening, Anna, to you as well. TSNI says, I thought I was on a Mantic stream, to be honest with you. I'll most likely subscribe. Well, if you would like to subscribe, that would be very kind. Tom McCall says, evening from Cramlington. A nice local lad. That's not too far. You can probably hear me with the telly turned off, mate. Who else have we got here? Everybody having a bit of a chat. Zingbo said he's building some models. Usually he's painting when he has this on and a bit too distracted to say hello. Well, thank you for saying hello, Zingbo. Jez Hunton as well. Bobby Clark. James Zorm said finally be able to pop into a live stream for a few minutes. And Gary Powell says you're designated expert for the night. Well, in lieu of there being anybody else here, I am the designated expert. So I think what we'll do is, if I can set this up properly. Now that's always the famous last words, isn't it? Let's set this up properly. And if I can go to here, yes, it works. It works. I'm going to very quickly I'm going to go over the information that Rob and Matt and Kyle shared from the Armada stuff from the weekend and the Kings of War stuff as well. I don't have any more information than they did, but if you've not seen it, there's some really nice things to share. And I've kind of condensed the slides a little bit, and I won't spend too much time on them. So the first thing we saw for Kings of War Armada was we saw basically the 2021 and 2022 release schedule, which rather than being a roadmap because they're ships, it's a sea chart. So we knew about Seas of Flame coming out in July. That was talked about in the last preview, which is the new supplement, and we'll touch on that in a second. We also got to see the Elf fleet as well, which is coming in October this year. And it was also mentioned that in Q1 2022, we'll also see salamanders. There wasn't anything shared about that, but we know they're coming down the path now, or coming down the river. Seas of Flame and the magic supplements is what we're seeing first. Like I say, it in July. And basically, the supplement cards, the magic cards, if you like, are a deck of cards that you can purchase, and they are optional. You can play with or without them. They just kind of give a bit more flavour to the game. So this card deck basically is generic spells for everyone. But the way it works is you have faction-specific spell books, which say that if you're an orc player, for example, you can take 2 of this spell, 1 of this spell, so many of the different spells and such. And then every faction also has 1 specific spell that is just for that faction. So that's it just gives a bit more flavour to the games, makes it a bit more magical side of the fantasy stuff. Now the Seas of Flame expansion, or gaming supplement as it's called, it'll have some more short stories, and if you've been enjoying the fluff from the original book, it's got some nice artwork in it. It also has the new rules for the flyers as well, which we've seen. So flyers, they're not going to be game breaking. You can use them as another tool, if you like, as a something to add to your fleet. And if it's not something that you want to play with, you can still play against someone. If you've got a fleet with no flyers, your opponent's just bought some new flyers and wants to use them, it'll still be balanced within the points limit. So you can you can choose to use them or not use them. And essentially the rules will be relatively simple for them, and they still use the turn-in templates as well. Also included in the Seas of Flame book is we'll see the addition of coastal defences, so we can have things like fortifications and forts, etc. on bits of terrain, and these can also get their own upgrades as well. So it'll have rules in the book to basically expand on that and allow you to take those. And there is a page of new magical upgrades for everyone as well. And on top of that, there's also 10 new scenarios. And it also adds in a much requested campaign system as well. So what I would say about this, without reading it, without knowing more about it myself, it feels like it's really fleshing out the original Armada rules. The Armada rules were pretty easy to get your head around. There was a bit of flavour in there, but it could maybe do with a little bit more depth for players that wanted that, with things like the campaign system, more magical items. And I think that was always the plan, really. The first stage was really just getting people to grips with the rules. So that's what we're seeing. I'll just quickly have a quick look and see what comments we're looking at here. Scott's saying Armada's piqued his interest as well. Tiny War Games, nice to see you in, sir. Colton Lanes, I didn't know they were doing a preview today. Excited to see what they showed off. Yeah, they did one on Saturday, mate. So yeah, I'm just very quickly going through some of the stuff before we get onto OverDrive. Then they showed off these, which were the Twilight Kin fleet. This is coming in August this year. And here we can see the Assassin and the Heartseeker. Now these are medium ships. The Assassin is the one that you can have multiples of in your fleet. And the Heartseeker is basically, it's the same kit with a bit of an alternative build, and the Heartseeker, I should say, is like the named vessel where you can only take one of them. It has its own sort of special rules. Let's have a look down here, and yeah, excuse me, and the Banshee is a small ship. So this is for the Twilight Kin. Next, we saw the Elf fleet, which will be releasing in October this year. Here we can see the Leaf Blade, the Draken's Fury, and the Valandor. The Leaf Blade on the left-hand side there is a large ship, and it also has an alternative name ship as well, where you can use this kit with alternative parts, which is called the Pride of Adar. The middle ship there, the Draken's Fury, this is a medium-sized ship. And you can see on the front of it, it's got the face of a Draken on it, and also if you look, it looks like the wings are curled back down one of the hulls, so it looks like a bit like a dragon from above, which I thought was really cool. And then the one on the right there is the Valandor, which is the XL ship, and it also has a triple hull, so you can see how the main hull down the middle. There's a smaller one just to the the bottom right there. There's another one on the other side of the ship as well. And these are designed to reflect the fact that they're speedy ships. They're maneuverable, they're fast, as you can imagine from elves. And the elf flyers was also mentioned as well. They didn't show any images of them, but there's going to be a couple of elf flyers coming. One is Draken with riders, so you can imagine we're going to see those. And the other one was a flying ship called a Cloud Chaser, which we didn't hear too much about, but Matt did mention that it will enter Kings of War at a later date at some point, which is quite interesting. And then he also dropped a bit of a knowledge bomb as well, that Northern Alliance and Varangur will be a joint faction. No idea of what the ships will look like or when it's being released, but he just dropped it into conversation. I'm not sure if he was meant to or not, but we certainly found that out as well on Saturday. So that is Armada. I'll quickly have a quick look at these. And see if there's anything here. Tom said, I'm assuming these are 3D renders. Do the models actually have bases like that? They do have bases like that, mate. They're basically just like flat bases. You can decorate them however you want. And what I would say is the resin ships are very, very close, if not identical, to these 3D renders as well. Lee Russ, hello to you. And Hendrik, hello to you as well, mate. So, Kings of War. What do we find out about Kings of War? We found out that the Salamanders are coming in July. We knew about this. They're actually up for pre-order right now, I believe. So if you're looking for a Salamander army, there was some fantastic sculpts for that. Then we saw some more of the Halflings, which are coming out in the summer. And then we had this silhouette teased as well for the winter, saying it's absolute top secret. I have no idea what it is. I mean, looking at that, it almost looks like it's got a bit of a scorpion's tail in that, but it could be just like a point to the end of the fur. It could be anything. Nothing was teased about it. We don't know what faction it's for. It could be a completely new faction. It could be an existing one. Whatever it is, though, it looks very interesting. So what did we see? We saw these in the last preview. So these are the hard plastic sprues, the core troops. But I'm not sure if it really came across the first time. I did mention it when we talked about the preview last time, but basically you can make 15 miniatures from this core troop sprue. You can make 10 of the the core foot troops, if you like, and 5 of the cavalry, and there's lots of different weapon options as well, so you can have them with the spears, you can have them with the rifles. So this is a really useful core troop kit that will allow you to build lots of different variability to what essentially are your your bread and butter core troops. So I think that's really quite clever how they've managed to do this. Next up, we've got the Halfling Engineer. This is going to be one of the hero models, and the design of these is that the Halflings are inspired by the dwarfs. So within the the fluff in the background, they're inspired by the dwarfs. Not that they've been drawn to be or created to be inspired by dwarfs. But they love tinkering with stuff and making their own technology stuff. So this is exactly what this engineer is doing. He's basically a bit of a tinkerer. Tinker is actually a keyword in the game, and as you can see with his spanner hanging from his belt there, and that that rifle, the sniper rifle that he's built, it looks like he's going to be a bit of a handy hero. Next up, we saw the sorcerer on our. I actually had to write this down phonetically. It's Arales. So yes, it's how it sounds. So basically, this is a magician, a sorcerer, and these are basically using potions to boost the halflings. And they have a different kind of magic, which is called gastromancy, and it basically will buff the units around them. So I think that's going to be quite interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how this works as an army, because I think, before I even show you the rest of the stuff, I think I saw enough from the weekend that this has really kind of made me think, this might be my next Kings of War army now after my dwarves. I've got my dwarf army ready to kind of play and stuff, and paint it up. So while I'm playing with the dwarves, I can maybe start working on one of these in the background. So I think this might be my next Kings of War army. Now these were new. We hadn't seen these before. These are the Halfling Grenadiers. And again, this kind of reflects back to that idea of tinkering and kind of making things. They've essentially got like rockets and makeshift wings on them. And they're also carrying grenades. And I think Kyle said he thought these came on a 40mm square base as well. I love the look of these. I know there's been a bit of talk online about some people saying that they're not sure if they like the way that different Halfling units come together. For me personally, I think they all look fantastic, and these ones are potentially my favourite of the whole range. And then we've got the Forest Troll Gunners. So yeah, we've got the Forest Trolls there with some Halflings kind of strapped to their backs with rifles. So they're the kind of things that's a bit of a gun line when they're shooting at you, and then when they get up close, they look like they're going to do a bit of damage, and they'll be a nice kind of unit just to kind of block up a few kind of charges and stuff, and throw a bit of chaff in there, I think. And then lastly, we saw the Harvester. As you can imagine, the Halflings are kind of farmers at heart and stuff. It looks like they've basically cobbled together some bits of farm equipment and then got one of the trolls and went, right, do me a favour, push that. And I think it looks fantastic. It's one of those things, I think, even if I didn't play the Halflings, if I chose not to do them as an army, I think this is a kind of model I'd like to just pick up just to be able to kind of build and paint. So yeah, that, my friends, was the previews for Kings of War at the weekend. That's what we saw. So yeah, I just didn't want to go into too much detail. If you want to know a lot more of the kind of the background behind the lore of like why are the Twilight Kin and the Night Stalkers together, and what's the background for the Halflings, and what's the little flying kind of balloons I think in the background of one of the images, I'd sort of ask you to go and check out the Mantic stream itself. Those are the guys that work for the company. They know it inside out. And I certainly couldn't learn all that and OverDrive in one day. So yeah, check that out if you want to know any more information on those ones. Just very quickly kind of having a look down here. Lord Maidensyn thinks it might be a Mantic core. Yeah, I wouldn't disagree. I think it did have that look about it. Pomsey saying I'm into the Salamander army. Wasn't at first, but they've grown on me. I think the newer models, mate, I'd agree. I think the newer ones definitely have kind of fleshed out that army now, and they definitely have a more kind of a rich and rounded look to them now, I would say. BG saying, yeah, looks like a lion head with a scorpion tail. Yeah, everyone's saying Manticore. Ian saying Kings of War Varangur to go with Armada. Possibly. I'm not sure. Blizzards are saying the winter one looks like a dude riding a Manticore. Yeah, I think people are definitely Manticore. Al saying Halflings on dogs is just ace. I love it as well, mate. Apparently, I forget what they're called now, but they have winged versions as well, which are much bigger. Busy's having a chat backwards and forwards. Vichy says none of the upcoming Armada factions float my boat. I really like the elves, mate. Actually, I think there's a nice design to them. I love the way they look. They look fast just purely by design. Kodas is saying will be interesting how the 10-5 ratio of infantry cavalry will work out. Yeah, I think it's obviously been taken into account with the units, of course. Brad saying League of Infamy upgrades with Halflings. Yeah, I didn't pick up League of Infamy. I must admit, had I kind of thought about having a Halfling army back then when it was on Kickstarter, I might have felt differently about it at that point. Where are we up to here? Christian sharing the link for Patreon as well. Thank you very much, Christian. Christian Brown sauce. Are we still talking about bacon already? Jill says, love most of what they've shown for the Halflings. Don't like the trolls, but the rest are lovely. I quite like the trolls, I'll be honest. Where are we up to here? Pomsey saying, nice too. Actually hadn't seen those. Hope Lives is saying, oh no, those Halfling Grenadiers may have to build a Halfling army. They're awesome. Deep Red says, I hope they leave logos off the ship's sails. I've not seen them from that side, mate, so I couldn't tell you one way or the other. Moosington, good morning to you, sir. Hope you're well. I'll say I only play skirmish, but if it was getting a Kings of War army, I'd be all over the halflings. Yeah, and Ice Moon, good morning to you as well. Or good afternoon, good evening, whatever. And Lord Maiden says, get to the money. Yeah, so, well, let's get across then. And we might as well start. Let me just get this up in place. And we will go across to this one. So this is I guess what the most people will excuse me, this is what most people I think will have come from, and of course I'm going to clip this bit out as well so that folks can just catch up with this one. So tonight I'm going to be telling you more about OverDrive by Mantic Games, which was announced at the weekend. We got a teaser for it a little while ago at the last preview. It was kind of the last thing that they showed, and we've seen a few images online over the last couple of weeks as well. And we got to find out more about it. As I mentioned earlier, I've been very luckily being sent the rule book. Rob sent me as a PDF. I printed it out. You know what I'm like. I like to be able to read it on a bit of paper, so it's easier for me to flick through. I've spent the day kind of absorbing all of that and reading all about it. So hopefully I can give you a bit more information and also answer any questions that you've got. So without further ado, let's crack on. So OverDrive is the new supercharged arena sports game from Mantic Games. It is a 2-player game. Playtime is approximately 60 to 90 minutes. Rob said that when you're first kind of learning the game, it might take about 90 minutes for a game while you're first getting your head around it. But once you're familiar with the rules, most games have been played at around the 60-minute mark. So it's much more fast-paced. It's the kind of game you can get a couple of games in on a club night. It might be the kind of game that you have a quick game at the end of the night, when you've kind of finished a bigger game or something like that, and you have a little bit of time left. So the background for this game, and I've included this because I just found it really interesting when I was reading it, is that basically Dreadball was the most popular sport in the galactic core prosperity sphere. And in the brutality of it was one of the big draws, bringing in hefty pay packets and big sponsorship deals. And then unfortunately, the unthinkable happened as our viewing figures began to dwindle, and the galaxy's most brutal sport had become more about skill and tactics and scoring rather than the kind of gods smashing out the teeth of their opponents. So desperate to boost the audience figures, once again in Dreadball, the governing body came up with a concept of this halftime wrestling, with using the giants that basically some of the Dreadball teams had been hiring for their games. And the Giants basically had fell out of favour with these highly skilled, kind of fast-scoring teams now, and they were desperate to basically get in there and sort of raise some income. Now, these wrestling matches quickly became the must-watch events, and the audience figures started to kind of sort of soar like they'd never soared before. So there was only one thing to do, was just to have more of this, to have more giants, more violence, and more ways to play. And so these halftime shows became their own sport, and OverDrive as a game was born. I just love the kind of the fluff in the background of that. There's some really nice narrative stuff inside this rule book, and the introduction is a lot more kind of long-winded than that, but I've just kind of picked out the core bits for it. So what is inside the box when you buy this? The game's going to come with everything that you need to play. It's going to come with a game board, which is made of thick card. So if you've bought the Dreadball 2-player starter set, I'm assuming that kind of core set, the board that comes in that, this will be something similar. It comes with 6 plastic giants with tri-hex bases. The tri-hex bases are just kind of 3 hexes together. And it comes with all of the dice, the tokens, and the rulebook as well. Now the price is unknown at this point. Mantic didn't reveal a price. It does go up for pre-order, I think next week they said. So we will know about the prices very soon. And then they announced on their blog today as well that it's going to be in the shops in September. So we'll not have long to wait. This is not going to Kickstarter, it's going straight to retail. They're having a bit of an early pre-order window so you can kind of get an idea of how many sort of to get produced. And kind of get ready to go. So you'll be able to pre-order this from your friendly local gaming store as well as direct from Mantic. Now, if you do pre-order it before a certain date, which hasn't been confirmed what that date is yet, you'll also get these pre-order bonuses, which are a scoring and a rush tracker token. In the core set, they'll just be cardboard tokens, but if you do pre-order before a certain date, you'll get these very nice, I don't know if they're going to be plastic or resin, to be fair, but you'll get these scoring and rush tracker tokens. Now, you'll also be able to get these if you pre-order through your friendly local gaming store as well. So we said 6 giants. These are the 6 giants that you get inside the core box, or the starter box if you like. There is Dozer, there is Brank Reborn, there is Caradon, there is the Spawn, there's Scarathron, and then there's Cynic Docker, who is kind of like a bit of a space jellyfish. Now, some of the kind of eagle-eyed of you will probably recognise some of these, because some of these models are already available for Dread Bowl as giants in the game. However, further expansions will see they'll see more giants being released throughout this year and into next year as well. So certainly that's the early plan. And basically what they're going to do is they're going to put 2 giants in a box and call these Rivals packs. It'll have the 2 giants in, any tokens that you need to play with them, their cards, and also a bit of background about why are they rivals. And I think Rob mentioned at the weekend as well that some of these will be plastic and some of these will be resin. I assume that it'll depend upon whether there is already a plastic model existing for them within kind of Dread Bowl or whatever. And the newer ones, I'd imagine, will probably be resin. So, now these are some of the painted ones. These were painted by Studio Heraldez. The 3, which are the Spawn, what's it called, Caradon and Dozer. I think we saw those ones on the stream on Saturday, but I don't think anybody's seen, what's his name again? Brank. I don't think anybody's seen the Brank painted model by Studio Heraldez, which is the one at the top right there, the dwarf one. So these give you an idea of the models. These ones that have been painted are the actual plastics as well that you'll be getting. These are not like sort of highly detailed resin miniatures that you won't be getting in the box if you like. These were the plastics that were sent to the studio, so it gives you an idea of just what is capable if you've got some brush skills. Now, some of the expansions that will be coming, there was a couple that were shared at the weekend. This one is called Tigrax, and it's been ridden by a Yindage warrior. This one is going to be resin. And he has a bit of a kind of like a nice mechanic in the game, which means that you can stalk your opponent. So you're almost kind of like putting a sort of a target on somebody's back, and you'll get bonuses for trying to attack that same model. This next one here as well is called Shadow. Shadow is very agile, very quick. This model, it'll be resin 2. And his overdrive ability, and we'll come on to what overdrive actually is, means he can turn being slammed into an attack. So that's why he's kind of standing with that like sort of come and get me pose on there. So you want to know a bit more about the game and how you play it. So this is the pitch, which it looks similar to a Dread Bowl pitch if you're familiar with that, because obviously the game used to be played on Dread Bowl pitches. It's got modified scoring zones and things, so it's not identical, but it gives you that kind of that feeling. So down the left-hand side there, you can see we've got the rush track. And the game is played over 8 turns, or rushes, as they're called in this game. And this is where you can kind of move your token down there and track which turn you're on or which rush you're on. Down the right-hand side, there's the scoring track. And again, if you're familiar with Dread Bowl and that tug-of-war mechanic, where basically if you score 2 points and I score 3 points, it comes back across to kind of like 1 on my side, if you like. So you're constantly pulling and pushing with the score. The winner basically of the game is whoever has the most points at the end of the 8th rush, or if anyone reaches 8 points on this tracker at the end of a rush, they basically win by a landslide victory, no matter at what point it is in the game. Both players have a knockout pit that you can see there as well. So if your giants get knocked out, if they get reduced to 0 health during the game, they basically get knocked out and they go into the knockout pit. And then they return to the pitch the next turn. So if you lose a model or lose a couple of models, they will come back next turn. Both players have a subs bench. So basically at the end of a rush, any players that were knocked out that turn all move onto the subs bench, and then in the next rush you can basically move them on using an action. Both players have an overdrive token position, and this is to indicate whether you've used your overdrive ability this turn or not, and I'll come on to that a little bit more in a bit. Now you can see there are 6 scoring zones. There's the 3 blue ones at the top there and the 3 yellow ones at the bottom. And basically these are used in different ways for the different game modes. However, in the core or the standard mode, one scoring zone will become active So you can see in the center there's a kind of a hexagon. Let's see if I can just get my laser pointer thing here. So you can see in the center here there is a hexagon, and these are basically like numbered 1 to 6. So every turn or every rush after the first rush, one of those 6 scoring zones will become the active scoring zone, and if you can get your models into that scoring zone at the end of the turn, you will get points for it. You need to have all of your giants base inside to be able to score as well. So as you can see, you're not going to get sort of like four giants into one of those bases very easily. And yeah, as I said before, the active zone will change each turn. Oops, I've just missed one thing off there as well. Basically within them as well, you can see they're just circled in red just here. Each one has one, and these are the bonus hexes. And if your giant base is within the scoring zone and also on top of the bonus hex, you'll get an extra point for that as well. And you can also gain points by knocking out your opponents. So that's how you basically score the point, and that's how you win in the kind of the standard game, if you like. So here we've got one of the stat cards. So each giant has its own stat card. You can see the name at the top there, followed by a couple of keywords, and the keywords are more important if you're doing kind of like the league rules, and they're relevant to certain sponsorship deals or some coach upgrades, but we'll come on to league and things later on. So the stats along the top there, MV equals move. This is how many hexes your giant can move in an action. STR is the strength of your giant. This is the number you need to equal or beat on a strength test. So if you're familiar with Dreadball about strength tests and agility tests and stuff, it works the same way here. AGL is agility, the number you need to equal or beat on an agility test. SP is speed, the number you need to equal or beat on a speed test. SK is skill, again, the number you need to equal or beat on a skill test. And HP is your health points or your hit points, how much damage your giant can take until it is knocked out. Now, under that, you can see here we have abilities. And Dozer here has 2 abilities. These are the sort of the special things that your giant can do, and each giant has different abilities they can. For example, Dozer here has an ability called Shell, which means he's stronger from rear attacks because he's got a big hard shell on his back. And he also has a teleport ability, which allows him to move around without having to evade, and he can also move through players. Now to the right, these are your action markers. Now the way the game works is that each coach has 3 giants, which basically are drafted in. We'll come on to drafting in a second. And you have 4 actions, and you can use those 4 actions however you like across those 3 giants. However, the most actions you can use on one giant is 2. So you couldn't use all of your 4 actions on Dozer, for example, and just kind of like Rambo him across the playing field. So this is where you basically put your tokens and track who's already had an action and how many they've had. Below that, we've got a place to put damage counters here as well. So as you take damage, that's where you'll track that. And at the bottom there here, we basically have the OverDrive ability. And this is basically each giant has an OverDrive ability. And the coach with your 3 giants, you can use one of the 3 giants' OverDrive's ability in each rush. And it uses an action to use them. So Dozer's OverDrive here basically allows him to teleport further than normal, and then he can kind of like curl up and hide in his shell, which means he's more heavily defended for all attacks for the remainder of that turn as well. And essentially what you do is, when we're talking about these, the game uses a draft mechanic. So in the starter box there are 6 giants, and basically if I'm player 1 and you're player 2, I pick one of the giants, then you go and you pick one of the giants, and then I go and pick one, and we keep going until we've each got 3. And what it means is that it kind of balances the game out, because if they ever become this kind of all-powerful sort of like these are the best 3 to take, or these 3 are overpowered type thing, the chances are you're never going to get those 3, because somebody's going to pick one before you get the chance to kind of to do that. And then once you kind of get a bit more advanced, and maybe you're playing with a friend who's got a box of these as well, you can then kind of line up your 6 versus your opponent's 6, and you pick a model. But if you pick Dozer, for example, because he's on the screen, then your opponent can't pick Dozer from their team. So you need to be able to adapt kind of like the team that you want, because you're not just going to be able to use the same 3 all the time. And then as more expansions come out and there's more choice, you will still start with a roster of 6 and be able to just kind of sort of pick 3 from that roster as your opponent picks those going backwards and forwards. So I think there's a lot of interesting mechanics in that. I'll come on to that, why I think sort of drafting is more important than it might first appear. Now, as I said before, you can do 4 actions across your 3 giants. The actions that you can do, what can you do? You can basically do a run, which is using your move stat. You can slam, which is basically sort of just slamming into an opponent. Actually, before I go into slam, you can basically run, which is kind of how many sort of hexes you move. And you can face any direction at the start of a run by turning on the spot. Then you can do your move, and then you can turn on the spot again at the end of your move as well, and do those for free to face in any direction. And this just kind of shows you roughly how things will move. So here it shows a pivot where you're basically pivoting from one hex. It also shows basically turning on the spot, and it shows you moving forward. So I'm not going to go into those in too much detail, but it just kind of shows you some of the ways that you can move around the board. Next up, we were talking about slam there as well. So it allows you to basically slam into an opponent. If you're allowed to take a run action at the start of a slam move as well. So you can kind of run up and slam into them. If you do this, you get a bonus for getting a bit of momentum and stuff. And if you do succeed with your slam, you can basically move your opponent back 1 hex, which might be really useful for moving them out of scoring zones, but you're also potentially inflicting damage to be able to take them out as well. Your opponent will get the opportunity to try and dodge out of the way or to try and defend against it. And we'll talk a little bit about how they do that in a second. So slamming, front and rear arcs are important, and all giants have a front and rear arc, as I mentioned. That basically this shows here. You can see that's got this kind of like sort of dotted line across here. Is that basically everything in front of those of that half is classed as your front arc, and everything behind is classed as the rear arc. And as you can see on this one at the bottom here, basically all of the 5 hexes that are in front of your front arc are classed as your threat range or your threat hexes. So if you're coming up against a model and they're in your front arc, you can attack them. They won't be able to kind of run away without kind of trying to evade you. However, if they come and slam you in the rear of your arc, the chances are they're going to kind of catch you unawares, and they're going to get a bonus for that. The other things you can do is you can do a ranged attack. So in this game, some giants have long tentacles, some have guns, some have bio weapons, and sort of ranged attacks can be very useful as well. So you don't have to be right next to them to be able to kind of inflict some damage. You can also use one of your giant's special abilities, the ones that we talked about on the card. And then you can also use your OverDrive ability as well, again, as we talked about on the card as well. Now, excuse me. Now, there are some other actions that you can take depending upon the game mode that you're playing. There's things such as catch, there's things like steal, you can take a breather, etc. But in the core game, these are the vast majority of things that you will be able to do. Now, when we're talking about kind of the dice mechanics for doing slams and catches and all that kind of thing, it works very similar to Dreadball if you've played that before. So you start with a 3 dice pool, and you're trying to achieve equal or more than the target number to gain a success. So you can see here on the screen we've got a skill test here, and it has an X in brackets as the target to pass the test. Now, some dice tests will see you trying to achieve a certain number. So if it has like a 1 or a 2 inside that bracket, it means you need to roll your 3 dice against your skill stat, and you basically need to achieve that many successes. So if your skill stat is 4+, you'd roll those 3 dice and you need to get more than 2 4+, for example. The ones that have an X in brackets means you are rolling against your opponent. So if you're sort of using your strength, you might be rolling against your opponent's defense, or whatever it's called. I forget now the term. And then basically you're comparing the number of successes that you each have. Now, one thing, if you're not familiar with Dreadball, one thing that sort of sets this game apart a little bit is that there are modifiers to this stat as well. However, the modifiers modify how many dice you have in your dice pool. So if, for example, you are because you're being hit in the rear, you get 1 less dice to your dice pool. You're trying to defend that attack with 2 dice instead of 3. and if you're getting +1 modifier, you're adding a dice to your dice pool. So what it means is if you have a 4+ stat for your skill, it's always 4+, and the only thing that modifies is how many dice you roll to try and get the successes. And I love this mechanic in Dreadball, and it's great to see that it's carried over here into OverDrive as well. You'll also see as well that we have exploding 6s in this game as well. So if you roll a 6, you basically roll another dice, and if that's a 6, you roll another dice. We can get some really good kind of trains going with that. But what there isn't in this game, and I'm pretty certain on this, is that there are no bonuses for kind of doubling or tripling your successes. It's a case of you either pass or you fail. So that's the basics of the game. Obviously, there's more to it as well, but I wanted to kind of just sort of give you the overview of how the game works. One thing I think folks will be interested in will be the league player, because it does look really interesting, and it basically adds, almost I'd say it adds a campaign in for this game. So you start with each person, you as the coach, you basically design what your coach is going to be. So you kind of give them a name, you might want to give them a nice backstory, and then you choose the sponsor for your team, and then you choose your coaching ability. And there is a page full of sponsors, and then another page full of coaching abilities as well. So sponsors will give you an ability to earn credits or money to upgrade your team as you play through League by achieving certain conditions in the game. So for example, one sponsor is called the Tigrak Sneakers, and they can earn you 10 credits whenever a player with the Agile keyword wins a dodge roll. So I mentioned before about how the keywords were important for League player. This is where they start to come in. And then the coaching abilities are things like Boost, which sees players with an Agile keyword gaining +1 modifiers on dash rolls. So that means you get an extra dice every time you do a dice roll with any of your characters with have Agile as a keyword. So you can see how it's starting to go now from basically where the core game with the standard kind of gameplay mode is very, very accessible, very easy to get your head around, and looks to be a really fun game. And then as we start to get into League player, where you basically kind of like, you can level up and you can sort of earn credits to buy more abilities, it just adds a little bit more kind of, not complexity, but it adds a little bit more kind of depth to the game, I think is the right word. You can also gain credits from basically from playing the games as well. So it'll see you gaining, essentially what happens is you gain a dice for achieving certain things like winning, like removing the most opponents from the field, and for every 100 credits that basically you had it in an underdog bonus. I'll explain what that is in a second. And then basically, so let's say you end up with sort of 5 dice. You roll those 5 dice, you multiply, you add the scores together, you multiply it by 10, and this is your payment for the game, plus a 50 credit appearance fee. So this is how you generate credits to basically invest into your team for your next League match. And you can use this to purchase things like coach calls, which are rerolls, like a free reroll in the game. You can get coaching dice, which basically gives you an extra dice to put into a dice pool to be able to do something that you really want to do. And then you can also buy extra coaching abilities between games. Now, the underdog bonus I mentioned there is basically it's a balancing mechanic. So if you're playing against a team who are basically the value of that team is much more than yours. Let's say your team is worth 150 credits, your opponent's team is worth 550 credits. There's a 400 credit difference between you. So what happens is this underdog bonus gives you that 400 credits as a one-off bonus to be spent on just that game. You can buy extra abilities, you can get like bonus 1-game sponsorship from another sponsor as well. And it just basically makes sure that every game you play is on more of a level playing field type thing. You can only get it for that one bonus, so you'll go back down to wherever you were for the next game. So it's not a case of like, well, what's the point in getting extra stuff? Because you're basically, if you're playing good, you've already got loads of credits, you've already bought loads of cool stuff, you carry that through the rest of the league. Where if you're not that great, you'll at least get a chance to do something in this game and try and like level up. However, you'll lose them at the end of the game, and you'll have to start trying to earn credits to get those permanent bonuses. I just think it's a really cool way to kind of level up the game. Sometimes this kind of game, if anybody's familiar with things like sort of Blood Bowl leagues and stuff, teams can disappear into the ether very quick, into the distance, because they've basically because they're better players. I just like the way there's a bit of a balance mechanic in this. Now, alternative game modes is something else that we talked about as well. So as I said before, there's the standard game, which is basically sees you, one of the 6 scoring zones is the active scoring zone. Whoever's in that scoring zone at the end of the turn basically gets a point. And that's kind of how the standard game works. However, once you've kind of got your head around that stuff, there are five other basically game modes. There's one called Pass the Bomb, which basically whoever has the bomb at the end of the rush goes boom. So it's the complete opposite really of what you're trying to do in the other game. You're basically trying to keep away from people. You don't want them to come up and basically give you the bomb. You can pass it between your teammates and try and like move it around the pitch. I can see in this one it's going to be a case of like deciding who to activate when and when to do it. You don't want to basically, you almost want to have last activation because you want to be able to hand the bomb off right at the end and your opponent not be able to do anything about it. So I think that kind of almost flips the game on its head a little bit. There's a capture the flag mode. Basically, whoever holds the flag at the end of the rush scores points for it. There's a way you can basically take the flag off opponents. You can basically knock them out and take the flag from them and stuff. There's another mode called Killing Streak, which basically you score by taking out opponents with more. You get more points for doing this by sort of doing more damage. And then you also get a bonus for holding on to what's called a kill streak token. So if you kill somebody or knock them out of the game, you get this kill streak token. And then basically you get an extra bonus for that if you're holding on to it at the end of the rush. So it makes you the target of the game, because if you're holding a kill streak token, you can bet your bottom dollar your opponent is coming for that model. So I think that's quite fun as well. There's a one called Invade, which is similar to the standard game, but basically it still has the active score zones, but you get bonus points for occupying your opponent's score zones as well. So then it gets a point where do I want to go into the scoring zone, or do I want to try and basically stop my opponent from coming into my scoring zones? And the last one is Dodge Brawl, which is exactly kind of how it sounds. You score by being the player holding the Dodge Brawl token at the end of a rush. Or you can basically throw it at your opponents and basically score by taking them out with it. So I really love these different variable modes, and I think they'll bring a lot of kind of flavour and a lot of different sort of they're more than scenarios. I think they'll bring a bit more than that to the game. So let's what I'm going to do is, if I can just move this one down a second. Need to turn my laser pointer off first. And I kind of got a few thoughts really about it. So, as I said before, I've not played the game yet. I'll be playing it very soon. But I have read through the rules a few times. They're really easy to understand. So I'll kind of give you some of my thoughts on it. First of all, I love the theme. I like that kind of sci-fi anime sort of look of the game. A lot of these types of games tend to be fantasy, so I really like that it's a sci-fi version. The rules are very reminiscent of Dreadball without feeling like Dreadball. It doesn't just feel like it's Dreadball with different models type thing. It's something Mantic do really well, is they basically use sort of tried and tested, easily accessible rules, and they adapt them for other games in their range, which means if you already play a Mantic game, these are not going to be too difficult to kind of pick up the rules. I think they're pretty simple to kind of get your head around to start with, but I think it's almost a case of, oh, well, I played Dreadball and I really like that. This is not a huge step away from it to be able to kind of like pick up the basics. It's really easy to learn, as I mentioned. I think the drafting mechanic is fantastic for balance. It stops that basically kind of like that one powerful list that everyone takes. I think it's a great way to grow the game as well over time by kind of adding a couple of giants as expansions. Because what happens is all the releases will be relevant to everyone that plays the game. It's not a case of, oh, well, it's not for my team, so I'm not buying this one. Because it's a drafting mechanic and you can add in anything you want, every release that comes out will be available for you to use. I think the base game is really beginner friendly. You could use it as kind of a board game. I can see it being really simple to play with like younger players as well. And I think the league player and the alternative play modes add some extra depth to the game. And I think the different modes also mean that some models will be perfectly suited for some games and might be a bit of a liability in others. So it gives a good mix to balancing out and making you think about which giants you're going to take. And I think sort of over time as well, I think extra player modes new sponsors and coach abilities. They'll all be great expansions, and they won't kind of like sort of break the game, if you like. A couple of concerns that I've got, like from reading the game without playing it. Again, these might not be concerns at all once I've kind of like rolled some dice and played the game, but league play for me, that the random credit rolls could possibly be too random. I've found this a little bit when I've played Vanguard in the past. Sometimes you roll to see how much treasure you get, and I've kind of fell foul both like of getting way too much or of not getting any in the past. I'd need to play this through a proper full league to see how that affects, but that was my first impression when I read it. I'd potentially like to see maybe 2 more giants available at launch, just to kind of mix it up a little bit so we're not seeing the same 6 from launch. That might be the case. Maybe the 2 we've seen there might be available. I don't know what the release schedule is, or the release kind of for extra bits and pieces. But I'd like to see a few more giants, I think, early in that release. And I'm not sure at this point how important kind of the first pick for drafting is. So if you've got first pick and basically being able to pick anything you want, is that kind of a bit too powerful? I guess it's something that would happen over time when you're playing the games, and I'm sure with player testing it's probably already being checked. But like I say, that's just a bit of a concern, an idea really at this stage. And I guess the other thing everybody's asking as well is, how does it compare to other arena battle type games? Things like God Tier, Aristia, Super Fantasy Brawl, Warhammer Underworlds, and Riot Quest. Now, like I say, I've not played this, so I'm only going by kind of how I think the game is going to play. I'll give a full breakdown once I've got more experience, but from what I would kind of gather at this stage, I think the tri-hex bases make movement a bit more interesting, having front and rear arcs, which you don't have in God Tier, you don't have in Super Fantasy Brawl, you don't have in Aristia. I think that's going to be quite interesting. Reading the rules, it feels simpler to play than the others at this stage. I think league play and adding in some of the sponsors and the coaching abilities and the new game modes will probably give it a little bit more kind of complexity over the standard. But it feels a lot simpler to play, like reading through it. I really like the sci-fi aesthetic. Only of the other games, only Aristia has a sci-fi aesthetic, and Aristia I find it basically, it bogs down a little bit when you're rolling dice, because you're rolling dice with lots of symbols on, which you then have to reference on cards to see if it sets off triggers and stuff. And I always feel like there's this point where I roll dice and then go, right, hang on a second, what did I roll? What's on my cards? Let's have a little look about. And Aristia also has a deck building mechanic that I'm not. Like, it's, if you're playing it competitively, you've really got to kind of look at what cards you take. And I'm not a huge fan of deck building in this kind of game. And I would say it probably shares the most in common with something like God Tier at this stage, from just reading it, in which you're doing the drafting, bringing in different kind of crews or different champions of whatever you like. It has the sliding scale for scoring as well, the same way that God Tier does, of which obviously came from Dreadball originally. But I think they're different enough games to kind of stand on their own as well. I wouldn't say they felt similar. I just think of all the different kind of like arena brawlers, if you like, those ones are probably the two that I would probably put closest, for the fact that there's no cards, like no card mechanic, no deck building mechanic. The modifiers are basically adding and removing dice, the sliding scale for scoring, and the ability to have different kind of scenarios or game modes which make you think differently about which kind of heroes or which champions or which giants to take. So those are my initial thoughts. Like I say, I've not had a chance to play it yet, hoping to do that very, very soon. And when I do, I'll kind of come back and tell you more about it. So, folks, let me catch up with the chat now, and I'll see where we are with the different questions and see if we have anything specific here. So, let's have a look. Let's have a look. Kodos is saying, is this the same board as Dreadball Extreme? No, mate, completely different board. Chris is saying, look at this, I remember I've been wondering what Corvus Belly's tag raid will look like. Yeah, I don't know anything about that at this stage. But yeah, I can't really comment. I don't know anything about it at this stage. Al says, I'm seeing Marvel Crisis Protocol, Cosmic Terrain, and those bonus tokens. Beavis, nice to see you in. Alcy is getting the vibe of upcoming Suicide Squad movie from the Shark Lad. Yes, I know exactly who you mean. Vijay says, anyone got any idea where to get Perspex bases for Armada? I'm not sure, mate. You might be able to get them from somewhere. Andrew saying, so a modern day parallel to the fluff would be the NBA asking Hakeem, how would you want to fight Shaq to death because too many threes? Yes, pretty much, mate. Bit of chat to Robin there as well, saying about Essen maybe. Christian sharing the link there for t-shirts. I'm just having a quick look down. Rob says, worth mentioning the card designs have changed since the Dozer one to make the text clearer. Yes, sorry. So the ones from the stream on Saturday are the kind of the clearer cards with bigger text and stuff on them. This is a one that I basically sort of clipped from the PDF of the book there as well. Thanks, Rob. Hendrickson, getting older and the eyes are getting better. Yes. Spanky Taz says, just a flying visit. Better drop by, to drive by and drop a like. Thank you very much. Jill says, does the league stuff work across all the game modes? Yes, it does. You can basically sort of, you can have a league where you only play one, or you can have a league where every week or every game you kind of rolled off and chose a different one. Peter says, I guess this game gains momentum in league type player. It depends what you mean in momentum. If you mean about kind of how one team can kind of stretch away from the others, I kind of went over that with the underdog bonus and stuff. But yeah, it definitely has more depth. Rob saying Tigrex and Shadow will be on day one. That answers the question about having a few more available. Andrew Hendricks says it plays like a Mantic game. The main rule concept is clear after round one. Easy to learn, hard to master. Exactly, mate. Yeah. Bliss says, any ideas on price? I've got no ideas on price at the moment, mate. And Mr. Pie Cheese says the board's definitely not completely different. All the start zones are the same. The center looks different. If I remember right, mate, I think. No, I was thinking not Dread Ball Extreme. I was thinking of Dread Ball Ultimate because I was going to say it's more of a hex pitch that. I'd have to double check, mate. I'd have to double check if I'm honest. And Frantic says, have the minis being shown? Yes, mate. I showed the minis off earlier. So the 6 minis that you get in the box. What we just got here. Peter Nicholas, thank you very much, mate. Says towards your elf fleet. Thank you very much, mate. Much appreciated. Thanks for the donation. So yeah, I did show the minis off, mate. So what do you think? What's your thoughts? I must admit, I'm really excited to play the game. I'm a fan of these kind of sort of arena brawlers, arena based sports games type things. I am a fan of them. I'm kind of looking over on the shelf over there, and I can see from here. I would almost sort of even consider Blitz Bowl as one of those type of games. I've got Dread Ball over there. I've got Aristea. I've got Super Fantasy Brawl. I've got Beast Grave over there as well. So I am a fan of these games. If that basically influences my decision if it influences my thoughts on it, it is a type of game I like. I like the fact that the characters all come with cards. I like the fact there's no deck building in there or kind of having to buy or building up decks between games, if you like, trying to kind of outsmart your opponents that way. I love the idea of the drafting. I think as the game grows over time, I can imagine how you'll get like sort of picking bans and stuff like that as well, like you see in some of the MOBAs online, where basically you kind of sort of I'm going to pick this model and then your opponent can ban one of the models and all this type of stuff. I can see that going that way in the future rather. As I mentioned, one of my concerns potentially about how strong is first pick. I'm sure it's all been through the player testing and stuff, but my concern would be almost if I pick first, is it more balanced for my opponent to pick the next two? Is that too powerful because you've only got 3 sort of giants and stuff? I think it's something that'll all come out in the wash over time. But I do like that drafting mechanic. What else? I love the fact that we got exploding sixes. You can't beat exploding sixes. They always bring a bit of excitement to the game. I love the mechanic of adding to a dice pool and taking away from a dice pool. It means your stats. They never change. You don't have to worry about it. The book is this as in Dread Ball as well. Has a really handy quick reference inside as well, which tells you exactly what you need to know for doing different things. I found it really helpful when I was first starting out with Dread Ball. So yeah, I just think it seems like a really fun game, really accessible, quick to play, nice models. for me, it's kind of it's a winner. It looks good, so I'm really looking forward to to rolling some dice and giving it a try. Nigel saying, "Yeah, I'm surprised it didn't alternate which player chooses first for each pair of giants chosen. So you end up with player A choosing first, fourth, and fifth. But you only choose. Yeah, I see what you mean. I didn't notice that, mate. I think if I remember rightly, when I've read through the rule book, it is just a case of I choose, you choose, I choose, you choose kind of thing. But I guess that's something that's easy to change if you're playing with your own groups or whatever as well. Jill says, coming from playing MOBAs, my only concern is player knowledge absolutely dominates over newbies to the point it's not fun. As you say, hopefully they have plans for that. I think when it comes to player knowledge, there's not a huge amount to basically, if you think about the card, they have a couple of abilities, but they're right there on the card in front of you. I think the abilities I've seen seem less synergistic. So, for example, Dozer's abilities are very much, it's kind of how he can move around and basically sort of how he gets through. So I haven't seen enough to say whether they're kind of like the synergistic where you see, oh, well, he's going to work really well with her or whatever it is. But I think the fact that you're only choosing 3, I think that, and the fact that your alternate picks, so you're probably unlikely to get the 3 that work really well together. I can imagine that's kind of that's going to be quite interesting anyway. Yeah, Tony saying not for him. No complaints about the game. As I was bullied out of chess and 10-pin bowling, I can't give a balanced opinion on adversarial. Not competitive. I guess most games are adversarial, to be fair. But I mean, I've played plenty of Dread Ball as well, which is obviously 1v1. And they're just fun games. They're fast games. They're fun games. I really enjoy them. And I can see this being very similar. I enjoy God Tier. I enjoy Super Fantasy Brawl. But I think they all bring something very different. I'm not a huge fan of Underworlds, purely because I'm not keen on the card mechanic. I like Aristea, despite the fact that I think it bogs down a little bit with the cards and the dice, because I really like the kind of the sci-fi theme, and I love the infinity kind of the lore and the visual appeal of it. But I feel like I kind of give Aristea a little bit of a bit of a pass sometimes over some of the things I don't like quite so much, because I like the other stuff so much. Tizzy Brindrin saying not really into arena brawl games. Absolutely fine, mate. Yeah, everybody likes something different. And Iron says he's happy Mantic's doing well with these types of games. But is Warpath Dead Zone kind of done? No, not at all, mate. I mean, I don't know how kind of up to date you are on stuff, but from a Warpath perspective, there is basically a firefight sort of beta going on at the minute, which is brand new rules for firefight, which basically builds out to try and improve on that. There was a teaser at the end of the stream on Saturday, which kind of like sort of almost teased out what I assume is either going to be another expansion or is going to be a Dead Zone 3.0 rule set. They're definitely not kind of done with those things. They just have lots of game systems, and things like Dead Zone, for example, is in a really good place. So it's not a case of where it needs kind of a lot of stuff for it. And I guess when you're a smaller company with like lots of game systems, you've obviously got to share your resources around, and obviously in order to keep the money coming in and keep the sort of the company going, you need to focus on bits that are making money at any one time. So I wouldn't say either of those games are done. Like, as I said before, there's new rules for firefight for that. So sci-fi stuff's getting a bit of love. And then there was, as I said before, there was something teased at the end of the stream as well, which is either like another expansion for Dead Zone, or is it a Dead Zone 3.0? So we'll see what comes with that, mate. Busey says, I think we're all nervous after Curse City. Now it's more about giving it time and see what comes. I wouldn't even consider this even in the same ballpark as Curse City, mate. Curse City is a board game where essentially it just, like it's just a game with potentially with some expansions. But I think the problem with Curse City was that we didn't get to see the rules or any gameplay before the game came out. Obviously, they sold out of the game, and for whatever reason, they've gone kind of radio silence on it. And I think that's a completely different ball game to this one. To be fair, this is This is a game that you're going to be able to see gameplay. Mantic mentioned on their live stream on Saturday that they've already filmed some gameplay for this, like kind of how to play videos. So they'll be coming out soon. The pre-order for this kind of starts next week, and the game releases in September. So you've got plenty of time to kind of to weigh up your options of whether it's something you want to do. And it's a game that's going to be there and continue to be supported into the future. They've already talked about expansions for the rest of this year and into next year as well. So I wouldn't treat it under the same kind of guise as something like Curse City. Tom McCall, hello Tom. Says, only people I get to play with this are all in the competitive scene, and I prefer casual gaming without the min-max and competition brings. I mean, this can be played competitive, but it doesn't have to be competitive. I've never played any of my arena games competitively. I guess it's probably more to do with who you're playing with, really, as opposed to the game itself. Peter says, of all the new games this year, I'd like to try this one. Maybe I'll take a look at release. If nothing else, I have some great minis to paint. Yeah, I mean, I think Mantic mentioned as well on Saturday that if you are in and around the Nottingham area, they have a demo copy of it that they will very soon. You'll be able to kind of drop into Mantic HQ, into their store, and give it a try. So if it's something that you can get access to, it's there to be able to do it. I'm sure that some people, I'm sure Mantic are attending UK Games Expo. It might potentially be there to be able to kind of have a demo of that as well. But yeah, I'm gonna be getting to play it as soon as I can, and I'll be recording some stuff, so that'll be some extra gameplay for you. Mantic are doing their own official videos as well, so yeah, I'm sure as people get the chance to get their hands on it, it's what I would say is one of the downsides of things like Kickstarters and really short pre-order windows, is that a lot of the time you have to put your money up before you've had a chance to really see how the game plays. So a Curse City we were just talking about was a prime example of that. That's not the case with this. There's a big enough pre-order window that you're going to have time to weigh up your options to see if it's something you're interested in, and you're going to get you can potentially get the chance to go and try it yourself if you're local to Mantic, and if not, there's going to be gameplay videos that's going to kind of give you at least a bit more knowledge and a bit more sort of idea of, is this something that I'm going to be interested in? So yeah, I think it's a bit different, this one. Rob's in there, he played OverDrive with his 9-year-old, really enjoyed it. He's better than him. I can say this, especially like the sort of, if you were to buy this, just the core box, not even think about expansions, not even think about playing the extra game modes and anything like that, I can see this playing as a really good board game with like kind of like younger players as well. Because I always like to look at these kind of 2-player starter sets as, is there everything I need to play in the box? And is it easy enough for me to be able to kind of say to my wife, do you want to give this a try? That it's not the kind of game that it'll take me all night to teach you how to play. And I know from my experience of playing Dreadball with my wife, that she'll pick this up sort of super quick as well. Now, if I started going in, let's do league play and let's add in all of these extra bits and pieces and stuff, that might be too much for her. But I would certainly kind of pitch this as in it's something that is relatively partner friendly and is also probably great with younger players. As I say, I've not played it, but from reading the rules, I feel I've read these rules, and I feel like I could teach somebody with never having actually played the game yet. And now, I'm not great at learning games from rule books. I tend to have to kind of play them. So for me to say that, I think that's kind of testament that the rules are they're well laid out, they're well written, and they're really accessible. Tony saying, to be fair, you can't compare GW product and or mindset with someone like Mantic. While the game might not be for me, I can't knock it. And Jess saying, not my cup of tea, but I can see it being a right giggle playing with your mates and a couple of beers. I think it's got the potential to have really good kind of sort of competitive scene where people will want to turn up and have like events with the game. But I can also see it being the kind of game that you just kind of play for a bit of fun as well. And like I said before, it might be something you play on a club night or something like that, and play 2 or 3 games. But I'd be interested to kind of, I think Rob said on the stream that they basically did a league in a day as part of their player test, and I think I'd quite enjoy doing it, a bit of a league in a day. Busy said, I think we should hold off for a couple of weeks and see what happens. I don't know what you mean, hold off for a couple of weeks, mate. The pre-order is like 2.5 months or something like that. I'm not suggesting anybody goes. I'm not selling this. I'm just kind of telling you information about it. But I don't know why. I don't know what you mean by waiting 2 weeks. John Francis, evening all. Finally made it from work. Hello, John. I apologise if you've just missed all the details, but it will be there. I'll be releasing it as the Tuesday Eclipse video as well, with just the OverDrive stuff. So you can either catch it on this video, or you can catch it on that one. So like I say, I'm really interested to see more. Can't wait to see what the expansions are. As far as kind of extra characters and extra expansions, I'm not going to sort of say anything about it, but I would say that from the artwork alone in this book, I've seen at least another 7 characters that's not been shown yet. So I think that kind of gives you some idea of at least of where some of the future's going with the game as well. And as I said before, I think releasing a pack with a couple of giants in it, because of the draft mechanic, anybody who likes the game, anybody that plays the game can basically buy it. It's not a case of, well, that's not for my faction, it's not for my team, I don't need that one kind of thing. So yeah, I just think it's fun. Anyway, folks, what else have you been up to? Have you been painting this evening? Have you been doing a bit of hobby? What's your hobby been like this week? Who's been playing games? Who's getting back out there? Who's getting back out there to their clubs, having mates around and getting some games in? Let me know what you've been up to. Jess is saying there, it's good to see Mantic going from strength to strength. I think they've from as an outsider, as a customer's perspective, just looking in, I think they've had a pretty decent year, really. I mean, or a couple of years. Kings of War's going from strength to strength. We see Armada doing really well. We see things like the the Firefight rules beta coming out now. We've got this coming on its way. I think what we're starting to see, I really like the previews that they're doing at the minute as well. I think getting them down to like a couple of hours, they're nice and punchy as well, and we can get a lot of information out in that way. And I like seeing them. I like seeing shorter ones more frequently, and I think it's a great way to to get amongst their community and basically show what's coming out soon. Basically, and we see things like the salamanders, the halflings. I just think they're really fleshing out some of those armies now. Well, yeah. Colton says he's building some Crisis Protocol X-Men. He's just finished Cyclops and Storm, and now working on Toad and Magneto. As a friend of mine just been painting the Magneto model. It's quite nice actually. Although he did say that the waist didn't fit quite well, so I'm not really sure if it was him or if it's a bit of a funny model. Hendrik said we're doing a Kings of War Halpies Rift in the Netherlands. Over 20 players. Nice one. Cola says waiting for the second Pfizer shot until I do anything social again. Yeah, I'm fully vaxxed up, mate. I can't wait to get out there and play more games now. Tom Mott saying, God, I love Mantic. Tom says, just looking for your personal opinion. Do you think Dread Ball players will go for it, or will gamers choose one or the other, but not both? I think from a price point of view, I don't think that. I mean, I don't know. I'm guessing at this. I've got no information about this, but I'm guessing from a price point of view. I think Dread Ball players will probably still pick this up. I think most people who play Dread Ball quite often probably have already got most of the teams they're ever going to buy, and they're probably looking for something else to hobby-wise things to spend their money on as well. I think the two games are completely different enough that it wouldn't feel like you're just playing the same game. I think they're very different from that respect. I think the fact they're set in the same universe and the fact that the rule book's got a bit more sort of Dread Ball, Warpath universe lore and background and things in it, I think is nice as well. So I think from a purely personal point of view, I don't think there's crossover that would say, oh, well, I play Dread Ball, so I won't play this, or I like the sound of this new game, I think I'll stop playing Dread Ball. I think they're two different games in the same way that basically somebody would play, I don't know, the same way that somebody would probably play Kings of War and possibly still play like Vanguard or still play Armada or something like that. Where are we up? Let's have a little look. Andrew says, I'm hosting some sessions of Unmatched in 60 minutes. I better shower. Nice one, mate. Leroy says, great overview. OverDrive sounds intriguing. Been building some 40k bits for a mate tonight, and I'm looking forward to playing X-Wing with a mate tomorrow night. Nice one, mate. I haven't played X-Wing in ages. I never really did play 2nd edition. I always just got my old 1st edition stuff out and played that, but I've not played in a long time. Mark, good evening, Mark. How are you doing? He says he's been doing some more play testing this week, which is fun. He's on Tabletop Simulator now, so I was looking at playing Moonstone on there. Nice one, mate. Is there people online that you can play games with? Have you got a regular person you play against or something like that? Obviously, what I find with Moonstone, it's not the kind of game you could kind of play solo because there's that bluffing mechanic in the cards. So you definitely have to have an opponent to play against. It's not a case of, like, I'm going to play... Oops. It's not a case of it's a game where I've got to play both sides, or I can play both sides, where you're just rolling dice, if you like. So be interested to see how you're doing that, mate. Marcus has seen he started work on his Night Haunt for Warcry. He's been learning the best method of painting them is shading, not dry brushing. Lots of shading and lots of shading. How have you been? So you've been starting light and then shading into the recesses, as opposed to starting dark and highlighting up on the high spots, I suppose. Ian says he's almost done with an orcish demo fleet for a friendly local gaming store, then on to Basilia. I was just going to ask what it was for me. I assume it's for Kings of War Armada there. Christian sharing the link there for Amazon as well. Thank you very much. That's my affiliate link. If you shop through that affiliate link, you pay exactly the same price you always do, and I make a small commission, which helps support the channel. Just says he's building minis at the moment. GW Troggoths, because trolls are awesome. And he's going Oathmark and Rangers of Shadowdeep and 7 TV Fantasy. Nice. Mark's saying, are the Giants interchangeable with Dreadball? They are, mate. So the hex bases, like the tri-hex bases that they come with, are the same tri-hex bases that you use in Dreadball with the Giants as well. Peter says he's currently painting a squad of Beastmen for Warhammer Fantasy AOS. Not even sure where they came from. I think everybody's got some kind of sort of old fantasy miniatures tucked down the back of a sofa somewhere. Tony's been asked to do some basing workshops at his friendly local gaming store. Health reasons hold me back. Yeah, it's. Have you thought about doing it as a video, mate, instead, and having or basically putting it together as as a written version and just kind of handing it out to people that way? Try and do it, like, don't not do it at all, but try and see if you can do it in a different way. John says, as a Dreadball player, I would say it's a fun way to finally use my Giants I never actually used in Dreadball. There you go, mate. Mark saying there's a Discord group with players on that. That explains it, mate. Tizzy Brindrin says, most of the time the last few weeks been taken by convention prep work, though I did manage to buy some Scout Troopers and General Vias for Legion. Christian's off, got to get some sleep for work. Take care, fella. Nice, thank you very much for coming in. Jill's clearing the paint desk with a few remaining Romans before the project begins. The project. Bobby said he just finished a few painting tutorials for a hobby shop. Now batch painting some models for tabletop tactics, guys. You get all the good jobs, mate. Are you allowed to see which models you're batch painting? Marx is a Christian as well. Gareth Lewis, even, mate, said he got caught up building some models. How very dare you. And Scott says he's painting his Carnival miniatures as well and some terrain while he's 3D printing some scatter terrain. Did you sort of finally manage to decide how you were going to do your weathering, Scott? Because I know you were talking about how to weather the MDF buildings and stuff. Did you ever do it, or did you find a way that worked best? Ian says he's slowly continuing with his Twisted project, now on the 4th model in like 10 days. Flying through it, mate. That's not too bad, is it? Not too bad at all. So I forgot I've got a drink down here. My throat's dry. I put it down there so I didn't knock it over. So Henrik said it's too hot to paint and it's dry to dry brush. Too dry to dry brush. I know what you mean. Especially, I think we're in that funny time now at the moment where it's like the summer's coming. People have been like locked inside for too long now. People want to start to get out into the nice weather, but maybe it's too hot. We've obviously got the European Championships on at the moment as well, so folks are kind of watching a bit of that. So I think hobby's taking a bit of a backseat for a lot of people at the moment. Scott's saying, yeah, he found a way that he's happy doing. Nice one, mate. And Ian says it's not bad until you realise I was painting a model a day like a month ago. I don't think I've ever. I suppose I could. I mean, I've been painting some more of my Marvel stuff, which I can see on the table over there. So I've now finished Hulk, Red Skull, Dr. Octopus. Who's that there? I've got Ultron, and Crossbones, and Baron Zemo. So yeah, so I've kind of been quietly just kind of chugging through some of that stuff in the background. But yeah, a model a day, I wouldn't say I paint every day, if I'm honest, because I obviously work during the days doing other bits and pieces and stuff, and then Monday nights I stream. Tuesday nights I tend to kind of try and take a night off and spend some time with my wife. Wednesday nights I stream, but I do some painting. Thursday every other week's our D&D night, and then Fridays obviously it's kind of like a Friday night. I sometimes squeeze some kind of painting on a weekend and stuff like that. But lately there's been kind of like family birthdays. Obviously, like I said before, about things starting to unlock now, starting to get out and sort of see people again. So yeah, I'm not painting as much as I would like to at the minute, but it's more kind of not really having the time to do it, rather than not wanting to do it. Mox is actually not ready for pictures yet, but did start on my very first cardboard house terrain. Nice one, mate. Marcus is saying I have not gotten to highlighting on them, but been going from dark to light. I always try to wonder which is the best way to do it. I think, what do I generally do? I think I go from dark to light, generally, and I kind of highlight up from kind of the darker base colours. Colton says he's got his core box and Hulk finally painted. The X-Men are the first models for it he's bought since December. Once I finish these, I'm jumping on those new Spider-Man releases. I think I'm going to obviously paint the core box. I've got Deadpool to paint as well, which I bought that box. And I think I'm probably going to go with maybe either an Avengers or what was the other one? Maybe a Defenders list. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how I'm going to go with it. VG says besides his first crack at OSL with the airbrush, white and neon green. That's them Necrons done. Nice one, mate. You won't mess it up. You'll do a cracking job. Tom says, you mentioned weathering, specifically buildings. How many people gloss varnish before washing and then matte varnish at the end? I haven't tried weathering yet. I have done that with some stuff. I've did it with some Infinity models in the past where I've kind of glossed it to help like kind of get the stuff to flow. But generally, I haven't done it for buildings. But I generally kind of, I very rarely use gloss varnish if I'm honest. I've only just started using a matte varnish. Because I got a spray can of it to try, so I've been using the matte varnish for that. I do have some for my airbrush, but I must admit, I generally, once I've painted it, it's like kind of done. But yeah, I've been really impressed with those new, what they called, color something. I've got some cans next door. I'll put some pictures up or some stuff. Like I got sent a couple of cans of this sort of sprays, a black matte primer, which is really, really matte. It goes on fantastic. And then a clear matte coat as well for them as well. And I've been really impressed with them, actually. I didn't want to kind of do like a review or post much about them until I'd used them enough to say I was definitely happy with them. But I'm almost at the point where I'm thinking, God, it's probably not even worth getting my airbrush out to prime stuff when this stuff's so good. Lord Maiden says, yeah, I've had to change my expectations. So if I paint, it's good, but I'm not forcing myself to. Yeah, you should never force yourself to do anything, mate, especially your hobby stuff. Jilson, yeah, I get up earlier in the mornings to fit a bit of hobby in. I hate the alarm every morning, but it feels good starting the day with something I love. Yeah, I kind of get that. I tend to like to, I mean, I still get up early, but then I've got the kind of like the little one and stuff. So if I'm up early, then I'm up helping like get his breakfast and stuff and get him ready for nursery and things like that. Where if I have a little bit of a lie-in, and when I say a lie-in, I mean like 7:15 or something like that, 7:30. Then I tend to kind of get up and get showered, get ready, and by that point it's kind of time to start work. So, yeah. Moose is saying, funny Mantic released this after a suggestion I made to you about comparing arena battle games. Yeah, I didn't know anything about it back then, mate. I mean, I literally found out what this was on Sunday when I watched Saturday's stream back. So I didn't know anything about it before that. But yeah, once I've actually had a game of this, once I've played a game or two, and I've kind of got a better handle on it about the experience of the game as well, because I think how the game feels when you're playing it is really important. I'll do a more sort of deep dive and compare the different arena games. Henrik's off to bed. Good night, mate. Bobby says he's just 30 guardsmen and a demolisher tank for the Albion Raptor Regiment. Moving on to this year's 40 hours of 40k charity model soon. Nice one, mate. Paint alongside the girlfriend. Does she normally paint, mate? Or is she like is it something new for her? Is she painting something? Is she not painting miniatures? Is she doing something different? And everybody's having a bit of a chat there about null oil gloss and stuff like that, and using gloss before weathering. Tony says Colour Forge. That's the one, mate. I couldn't remember the name. He says impressed with them. Can only give Tony seal of approval from my experience. Yeah, I wanted to kind of use a full can of it before I was kind of like sure, but it seems to be going on pretty good, and I'm pretty impressed with it. They're cheap enough as well, because they're 500ml cans as opposed to the 400ml cans of everybody else. And price wise, like I think they might even be, I'll have to double check, but they might even be cheaper than Halford's paint. And that Halford was always my kind of like my go-to, just kind of black primer if I wanted a quick spray, especially for things like terrain or like MDF and stuff. But yeah, I think this stuff's pretty good. So yeah, I think I might have to pick some more of that up. And yeah, everyone's saying thanks for that, having a bit of a chat and stuff. I like that. Nice one. Yeah, Tony's saying they're cheaper. I thought they were, mate. I thought they were cheap. I thought that was what I was thinking. But yeah, they definitely seem good stuff. I'm impressed with them. What else have I been up to? So I've obviously been painting my Marvel stuff in my own time. Work-wise, today I obviously crammed learning all about this game. Tomorrow, I have got... What's on the agenda for tomorrow? Getting stuff ready for Wednesday's stream. I might potentially be doing some recording on Wednesday, some gameplay stuff as well. See how that goes. And I've got some Infinity models that I got sent as well that I need to clean and build. So they've kind of, that's got a little bit of work. And then I've also got some general video work to catch up on as well. Some stuff that I've filmed and not edited yet. Bobby says she doesn't paint much, but she's very good at it. She's mastering the airbrush for decorating her cakes later on. Ah, there's nothing wrong with that then, mate. Oh, I thought... Must be an... The hell's that? It sounded like an aeroplane going overhead, but it sounded a bit close for that. Colton sent the toy, but it wasn't as good as glossing at first, but saved me time of varnishing. I've bought some of the gloss washes in error, like sort of by mistake when I've picked them up thinking that they weren't them ones, but I've not used them. I've heard they're good over metallics, but I must admit I've never actually really used them to try them. But yeah, I mean I have gloss varnished stuff and then used washes over the top. It definitely kind of acts more like a pin wash, but I quite fancy actually picking up some of the panel liner pens as well to give those a try. Constantly dry brushed after, which helped correct any wash that didn't go the way into the cracks. I'm a bit of a lazy painter at times, so I tend to just kind of wash over everything and just sort of tidy, like sort of push the wash around while it's still wet and move it before it gets those kind of like coffee stains. So yeah, that's what I tend to do generally. Colton said he wanted to try some of that Tamiya black panel liner. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of, mate. I wouldn't mind trying some either. Scott says he used Model Mate Moss Green Weathering Spray Dye. I've not heard of that, mate. Does it not like spray sort of too wide, or has it got quite a fine spray to it? Or is it like, you know, like a pump action type thing as opposed to like an aerosol? Jill said bought a gloss flesh wash by mistake once. What a sweaty bunch that war banded up. I've done exactly the same as well. I've bought a gloss Agrax and a gloss, what was the other one? Reitland Flesh Shade, I think I bought as well. Tom says just check the Colour Forge sprays, £9 to £10 each. Yeah, I think that's. I think the Halfords ones like eight quid or something like that for the big cans, the same size. They might be 8 or 9. I think. I'm trying to think now. They're certainly cheaper than like GW and stuff like that, and Army Painter. And I know that they're all 400ml cans. These are bigger ones. But yeah, I've been super impressed with them so far. Yeah, nice one. So then, folks, I think I'm going to wrap that up now tonight. I think we're going to call it time on that. I've enjoyed that. Nice to kind of bring you some information about a new game. Nice to be able to kind of answer any questions that folks had as well. So thank you very much to Robert Mantic for sending that information over this morning. It just meant I had a bit more information to share with you rather than just doing the catch-up stuff. Gareth was saying there, Tamiya paint line is really good. You can do your own with oil paint and thinners. Yeah, somebody else has been telling me about kind of oil paint stuff as well recently. They're doing a lot more painting with oil paints. Something I need to try at some point. Anyway, folks, thank you very much, everyone. If you haven't liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, it'd be awesome to see some new subscribers as well. Take care, everyone, and I will see you on Wednesday's live stream. Thank you very much. Thanks for watching my video. I hope that you really enjoyed it. And if you did, why not consider clicking on the suggested video below to see more of the work that I've done. If you'd like to support the long-term sustainability of this channel, why not consider checking out my Patreon, where you can pledge and support from as little as $2 a month, and there is lots of different tiers and bonuses which will give you access to a private Discord server. It will give you free t-shirts, free mugs, a podcast every month, and a number of other things, including getting your name at the end of every video, like these awesome folks who already support me now.